of your wall so that I can post to Jennifer.
Yeah. When it gets to about 20 after 12, give her a call.
Mhm.
You've got a number, right?
Yeah.
So you can download it on a letter in. And might as well get a drink too.
AJ, are you able to see the transcript there? That should be working on.
Maybe send her a text or a text message within this.
And then Art and Ian, I'll just ask you to mute yourselves when you're not talking just for this beginning while I show a video.
Will do. Coming up.
Thank you. Thank you for attending this ConnecTogether event. During this event, we have automatic closed captioning available. Please go to the bottom of the Zoom meeting, click Live Transcript, and then Show Subtitles to turn them on. Before we begin, we'd like to take a quick moment to let you know how you can join an opinion research panel made specifically for British Columbians living with disabilities.
For 25 years, the Disability Foundation has been fostering meaningful experiences for Canadians with disabilities through outdoor recreation, social connectedness, innovative adaptive devices, and more. Today we are asking, how has the pandemic affected you? Help strengthen decision makers' understanding of your needs and experiences by joining an online opinion research panel consisting solely of people with disabilities and their caregivers. Make a difference in your community today. The Disability Foundation. Reimagine what is possible.
Did you know? Young adults with disabilities have a harder time getting hired. Break down barriers by sharing your story. Take our survey.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. Oh, we won't play that again. I'm Emily from ConnecTra Society and the Disability Foundation, and this is part of our Perspective Series. So this is our starting a business as a person living with disabilities, and today we are very lucky to have two wonderful guests. We have Ian Price and Art, I'm afraid to say your last name wrong, Artorius Giancarino. Did I do that okay? You're muted. I will actually get you both to introduce yourself and sort of a little bit of your story and why you were asked to talk today. So if you want to go first, Ian, that would be great.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Ian Price. I am the owner and co-founder of ICANN Resource Group, Inc., and I live in Kelowna, British Columbia.
I am Art Jonker. I have a stage name, which is Artorius Giancarino. So that's something you guys can work with. I keep it for my personal privacy as well. When I'm doing public events, I let those people that don't really know who I am know my stage name. So yes, I'm an artist, business person, entrepreneur for many years, starting little businesses here and there, and took up painting as a hobby after a spinal cord injury, which bloomed into a number of little businesses. That's where we are.
All right, right on. So Ian, you touched on what your business is called. Could you tell us a little bit about what you do, how long it's been running, and yeah, I know there's a lot of different aspects there at play. So could you give us a little bit of a rundown?
Sure, I'll try to keep it short. So I started ICANN in February of 2011, and it is a multifaceted corporation primarily focused on digital design. So that would be logos, websites, videography, etc. Also accessible travel. I'm a consultant, love to share my stories of traveling all over the world. And finally, assistive technology. So development and also consultation on what types of assistive tech are out there and how to help people be more independent.
That's fantastic. And Art, could you do the same? I know you have your hands in lots of different aspects, and I know you mentioned you are an artist, bit of an entrepreneur. I take it. Can you give us a little bit of a rundown of some of the things that you're doing?
Well, with this particular subject, which is my little art business, I started painting. I did cards, prints, t-shirts, books. One little, let's say, artistic idea turned into another. So that actually got me on the stage and writing songs and doing all these kind of interesting little artistic ventures. So it really just started with sketching, which became painting, and it was a really an artistic journey. But as for the business, I started a business with a friend of mine from college way back decades ago now. So my entrepreneurial roots go back a long way. And I tried a number of little businesses, and they, in some cases, just didn't become anything, and in some cases, they did all right. Prior to my injury, I was running a software distribution business, which was doing a couple of $1 million a year. So that was nice, but that ended when I had my injury. So. After the injury, it was figure out what's going on in life again and try to do something. At the time, it was just try to do anything. And it became try to do something exciting, and then build on that and build on that and build on that and do bigger and better things. So it really became much more than I thought it could be, which sounds cliche, but it surprised me. Yeah. It was pretty exciting.
Was art always a part of your life?
No.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't a part of my life at all. It was a part of other people's lives who I hired prior to my injury to do things like package design and promotional material, marketing material. And I hired them. I didn't have anything to do with the artistic design, except maybe doing some very rough, not artistic looking at all kind of sketches, just to get ideas across and things like that. So
Okay. So
I went from hiring artists to being an artist.
Yeah. And then a passion, hobby turned business.
Yeah, well, it wasn't, I would say it was an experiment, because I took up sketching on a dare, and that experiment turned into a little bit of like I had to do it. I really was searching for something after my injury to kind of bring some meaning to my life, and it's not like sketching immediately brought meaning to my life, but it was a challenge, and it was something that I actually surprised myself. I wasn't bad at doing it, so I had to try a little harder and get a little better and keep doing it and doing it and doing it until I kind of was pretty excited. So I got kicked out of the GF Strong art room, which is where I first started sketching, and that wasn't while I was a client there. It was when I was an outpatient for physio, and I got a chance to luckily do some sketching after I was done with GF Strong, that I went there every week, and actually a couple of days a week, until they said, well, you've been here long enough. Why don't you go? And I was kind of not really thrilled at that at the time, but they said, you know, you got to get out there, you got to take a course or something and get involved in the outside world. And that was a good step, because it took me way far beyond the little sketching thing that I was doing in GF Strong to taking classes and learning kind of techniques and things that artists should know. And I took several courses in life drawing, sketching, and things like that. And after that, I was pretty much like rolling. And the real moment that was fun was that I took pictures of my paintings when I was kind of happy with what I had done. I made copies of them and I brought them to the class, and my fellow students bought them. And I was not expecting that, but they actually bought copies of my work. And I thought, hey, this is kind of cool. Maybe I'll do more of this. So I did.
That's amazing. So kind of happenstance.
Yeah, it's nice when things work out when you're not expecting it. And,
Absolutely.
it's not just trying and being really goal oriented and money oriented and business. It was a nice surprise.
Right. And Art, can you just mention the name of your art company?
Well, it's called the House of Artorias. That's my website.
Okay.
And just so everyone knows, it's not really my focus right now. It's something that I built over a number of years, and I've kind of moved on to some other things, but I still do shows, I still market, I still sell. But with COVID, I kind of switched my focus. So,
Okay.
well, I'd switched it before actually, but the art business goes on. It's just not my big thing that I'm working on now.
Absolutely. Well, we'll get Yoshi, who's here, taking some notes to link up your website in the chat. And then I want to hear about what you've switched your focus to in a bit here. But Ian, could you tell us sort of what you were doing before ICANN and what kind of made you decide to launch?
Well, I was a student in university, working towards my Bachelor of Arts. Our primary focus was psychology, and I realized that it was going to take forever. Every year, I would get sick. I'd have to drop out. I would catch up in the summer, and I thought this is going to be a lifetime goal, and I need to make money. So I changed my direction to digital arts. And from that, I realized that there was money to be made, and that would help me travel, which has always been a passion of mine. And so I kind of moved in that direction pretty quickly. Yeah.
Okay, so you were in school and you decided wasn't the route for you, left school to do a digital program?
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I'm one of those dropouts that decided to go to Europe, and then I came home and thought, well, I need to pay for that trip. So what can I do?
We have that in common. Ian. I left music school and went to Europe.
Excellent. I think it was the best choice I could ever make. So no regrets.
Well, it's important to find your own path, right? And so
yes,
kind of out of this conversation, I would love to sort of relay some tools and even like some things that you've learned along the way, and even some adversity that you faced along the way for our community. So I just want to let Alice and AJ and Sheena, and even if you're watching on Facebook, you can put your comments in the chat, or you can raise your hand and I can, or even in the chat, just say you'd like to say something and I can unmute you and you can be a part of the conversation. So I want to talk a little bit about that, about sort of starting up. And I think starting a business, as anyone, comes with its own set of challenges. Do you maybe want to speak to, were there any sort of challenges that you felt you faced as a person living with disabilities that were sort of special to your story? Or do you feel like in general, just starting an art business was its own sort of beast of a thing?
Well, starting any business is a big deal and shouldn't be taken lightly. But it's best when a business kind of comes out of a personal passion, something you like doing, that you aren't just, in it for the money, because business can be overwhelming and it's especially time consuming, and it can be years without making lots of money. It can be even never making money. It might be just trying and trying and trying, kind of like college, and where you find out more about what you don't want to do than what you want to do and what works. There's a famous kind of quote from the venture capital market, which is that venture capitalists like working with people that have failed many times, because you don't learn from succeeding. Usually you succeed when you get lucky, but when you fail again and again and again, you learn more and you remember it as well, because those memories of working and working and never getting anywhere, you don't forget those. They're burned in. The painful memories are the ones you remember the best, right? So now that applies to any business. And like I said, it's best when you've discovered something, or necessity is the mother of invention, right? You invent something that works for you, and then you realize maybe you can sell it to other people, or you have a hobby that you love doing it, and you realize that maybe people will buy this thing you like making. And those are great places to start. And then when it comes to making a business from it, you got to decide whether there's really money in it, or whether this is just something you like doing. And doing something because you love it is the best. And it's even greater when it will make you money. But those things don't always go totally well together. So,
right.
I had a little formula here, which is, where did it go?
That's the jackpot, right? When you're doing something you love and it's starting to make you money.
Yeah. I'm just trying to find that in my notes.
I remember.
I'll find it later. It was just a little step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 thing. But basically, yeah, find something you like doing, try to figure out if there's any money in it, and then economically really, really analyze it, because it's worth it, and then put it down on a formal plan. And then you decide on a business name, and then you decide on the seriousness of the business, which, are you doing it for a hobby, or are you doing it because you really think it will make a lot of money, and you better put some serious attention toward legal and incorporation and things like that. And if it's just you and you don't have really big ambitions, then maybe you just leave it as a proprietorship. But if you think you will need serious capital, money invested, and if you think you are dealing in some areas where there's legal issues, then you should be incorporated. And sometimes you don't want to mess around. You want to incorporate first and then start putting things together.
Ian, what was your process with ICANN? Was it something you were passionate about, and then you saw if there was a need for it, or what was sort of the flow in coming up with ICANN?
Yeah, it was a blend of passion and necessity. I realized that at an early age that my health was something I had to take as a priority and make sure that I didn't burn myself out. too frequently, at least. And I noticed, well, I've always loved computers, and I knew that that would be an easy path to take. But I also knew that it was something profitable. I was, like I mentioned, a student. All my money was going to paying for vehicle repairs and gas, and so I needed to find something that that I knew I could make money at. I tried going to some workshops on for people with disabilities, and I was in a program to help bring me into the workforce, and I was quite discouraged because after a very rigorous process, including a 2-day psych evaluation, which I was very surprised about, they came back to me and said, "Well, Ian, we have a job for you. We're really excited." And I was excited. I couldn't wait to hear what it was. And it was heartbreaking to hear that the only job they found was for me to be an elf at the mall beside Santa. I was floored.
That's
I said, "Are
terrible.
you kidding me?"
That is terrible.
So there was a lot more drive at that point to do what I do now. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So do you have experience in your field working wise before you started your own thing?
To some extent, yes. Like I took courses when I was quite young. I think it was a way for my mom to kick me out of the house and be productive. And so I did a couple website courses. I actually built a website. I don't know if it ever launched, but for GF Strong when I was about 12 or 13 years old, and that was the first stepping stone. But yeah, so I always had a passion, and I think the beauty of computers is that there was so much information and so many ways to go in the industry that I just found something that I like doing, and people were receptive.
Yeah. So as you know, a young person out of school with an idea to start something, were there people that you looked to that were already doing it, that you asked for advice? Did you have a mentor? Did you do it on your own?
No, not at that point. Definitely, I've had mentors thereafter, but it was just something that interests me, and that was it. I kind of I have a different perspective than art to some extent, where I think I have been quite lucky, quite fortunate over the years, where work has moved me into things that have become a passion, and vice versa. A lot of my passions end up being a job or a side job, which I don't know if I truly recommend doing, because it seems like everything I do now, or all of my my passions, have turned into jobs, which can take the fun out of it.
Yeah.
But I just kind of go with the flow and see where it takes me. Like I had a job as an IT manager for a startup company that turned into a multi-million-dollar corporation, and it was just literally I was at the right place at the right time. I was working or attending a conference, and they were having technical difficulties. They couldn't get their projector working, and at the end of it, they said, "You seem to be very tech savvy. We're looking for an IT guy. Would you like permanent employment?" And I said yes. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Being open, I think, to the opportunities that come to you, right?
Yeah. Say yes to everything for the most part.
For the most part. Yeah. Well, that kind of, right. I mean, Art was saying that kind of, you have to weigh the line between, is this something that you're passionate about that you want to turn into a business? Because I think that's a really good point that you make about it can take some of the joy out of the passion. Right?
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. So it's good to be mindful of that.
Mm-hmm. So Art, when you were starting your art company, and I want to hear about some of the other things that you're doing now, aside from having sort of business and entrepreneurial experience, did you look towards anyone that was already doing work in that world, or did you have a mentor reach out, or did you just go for it?
Well, my current little adventure is really no, nothing to do with mentorship, just to do with the fact that I, for a long time, have watched business TV. You know, it's there. You watch the stocks, and you know, you see the prices on the screen, and you hear about things that are happening out there in the world that maybe are giant, and you know, like Microsoft and Google and Amazon, and you think, well, you know, it'd be kind of fun to own a share of Microsoft or whatever. And I've always been, let's say, back in my business school days, I liked the financial kind of world, but I went the entrepreneurial route and ran a company and you know, had my experience there, but I never really went into the corporate kind of thing, the you know, the public companies and things like that. But it was always something I was interested in. So I decided, after doing enough years of the art business, that I was ready to kind of try something new and take a shot at you know, stocks and investing and things. So that's my current project,
Okay.
which is not really a business that I open to the public, though I do put out a newsletter that is supposed to be a regular newsletter, but it's not that regular because there's so much happening, and it's very hard to stay on top of everything and then keep the research up and do the newsletter. It's really
Right.
something that I need a group of people to do, but it's just me right now. So
Mm.
it's exciting. Actually, every day is just like Christmas. I never know what's going to be, you know, under the tree. But you know, it's very intense. It's a lot of research. It's constant reading, constant checking my inbox for updates, and watching multiple TV screens at the same time. And yeah, that's what I'm doing now. Yeah.
That's very cool. And I think that is important to
I'm in a meeting right
keep
now.
in the back of your mind that, you know, passions and interests can change and you can shift into new things. It's so cool that you're feeling like every day feels like Christmas right now, you know, whereas the art world was maybe not scratching that itch for you anymore. And so you were able to pivot.
Well, yeah, it's a different thing when you're in the art business. Well, let's say that I should back up a step and say that I made a promise to myself when I began it kind of as a business, that first priority was enjoy what I do.
Mm.
And second priority was make some money, because I didn't want to be in a position where, just to understand, when you create a work of art that takes a month of your time,
Mm.
you can't just be at it every hour of the day just because you're doing it for the money. Okay, it won't work. There's you have to enjoy what you're doing, and to be creative in that respect, you have to well, let's say creativity and pressure don't work too well. You need to take the pressure off, feel free to kind of experiment and move and flow and do what comes naturally, and try things you know won't work, but you know that they might lead you somewhere interesting. So yeah, I wanted to emphasize that first do the work because you like it,
Yeah.
and then turn it into a product. And then when it comes to marketing, that was something in the art business I never had the time to do, even though I have a background in marketing. Okay. But and let's say I didn't do it. When I say I didn't have time to do it, or I didn't do it I mean, to the extent that I could have to maximize returns.
Yeah.
Because when you're in business, that's what you want to do. You want to maximize the results you can get. But in the art business, I have to maximize kind of my enjoyment first, and then take it, when I had the opportunity, to the sales kind of level. And that meant doing things like shows and meeting people in public, and having tables with my stuff on it, and displays with it on the walls. And that's great. And I liked working, let's say, I like meeting people and talking about the artwork and explaining what I do, and seeing their reactions. But for the most part, I was an artist creating a product, things that I liked. And second of all, I was a person selling my work, maybe, I don't even could say it 1% of the time, right? Maybe for every, well, let's say there's probably 5 shows a year that I did.
Yeah.
And in those shows took a lot of work to prepare for too. So maybe you could say I spent a month preparing and doing shows, and the other 11 months I was creating.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
That's the ratio.
I think that is a divide a little bit with the art world. And I'm a musician, and I know so many people that put out amazing art and just don't really have the brain capacity to market themselves. And so it's often bringing somebody on board who's a part of the team that sort of thinks in that way. Otherwise, you really just have to be doing all things, and definitely taking the pressure off of the creativity. Like, it's very hard to make good art when you're putting a price tag on it all the time. So I appreciate you sharing that. I think it was interesting, we kind of were talking about you have to fail to learn these things before you can be successful. And I remember one time hearing that TED Talks was just like a group of some of the biggest failures because they all have these stories to tell about how they got where they got. So I wonder, Ian, do you have a story at all that you can share, an obstacle that you had to overcome when it came to starting your business, and sort of some things you've learned along the way in the workforce?
Obstacles. Well, in the beginning, before I actually started doing digital design, I applied for a number of jobs locally, and some of those I wasn't accepted, even though I was a good candidate. They were apprehensive having somebody with a disability that wasn't able to actually enter their workspace. They were on the 3rd floor. They didn't have an elevator. And they said, listen, for confidentiality reasons, we can't give you the documents. We can't release them. Therefore, there's no way that you can work here. And so that was a bit of a reality check that I needed to figure out how to work from home primarily.
Yeah.
I think that was a big eye opener.
Yeah. Yeah. And that would be interesting in sort of this new time of remote working at home. I think there maybe are even some more opportunities than there have been in the past. I know you mentioned that you took sort of a course readying you for employment as a person with the disability. And that didn't sound like it was awesome for you. Do you have any advice? Because I know we have this youth leadership initiative that's going on right now. There was an ad for it at the beginning that says, how hard it can be to find employment living with a physical disability. What sort of advice would you give to somebody that was having a difficult time with that?
Perseverance. And I think that, like you touched upon, that everything has changed now, especially in the last 2 years, that it's quite common to work from home. And I think that a lot of employers are starting to learn that you don't need to be in the same space. And this technology, for example, Zoom, I think it's great because it allows you to have a transcript. So that can help people with certain barriers or certain limitations to help them. I think somebody like myself that I'm unable to swallow and I have to mute the microphone periodically to use the suction machine. That is so much nicer than in a boardroom where I turn the suction on and people think that the air conditioner is breaking and it's very disruptive. So
Right.
that I think that helps. But getting back to your question, I definitely think perseverance. I think showing, proving to people that you are able to do the job better than others. Yeah, that's huge. And I think employers are looking for that. They want somebody that is passionate, dedicated, and willing to put the work in, no matter what their situation is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you employ, or how many people do you employ? Ian, do you employ a number of people?
I do, yeah. I have a number of contractors throughout North America, and I that's also been a big change in the last 2 years. Prior to that, it was just me, and during COVID, I realized that a number of people are looking for work, and so now I have a team of people with different skill sets, and the majority of them do have some sort of disability, which is great because we're all like-minded. We understand that sometimes there's a day where we're not feeling well, and that just means that we're going to have to work twice as hard once we rest up. So
that's fantastic that you can support the community in that way. Yeah. And Art, do you have employees, or is it all
in my recent business? No, and it's just me, though I network with a bunch of people to talk about certain opportunities and things. But no, right now this is one of those businesses that is intended not to make any money for a while. It's kind of like Facebook at first, you know.
Yeah,
it didn't. And I wouldn't want to say this is the next Facebook. That's not the intention.
Good
what
trajectory.
I'm saying is that Facebook existed for a number of years, and nobody thought it would ever make money. And if you were one of those smart people that said, "Ha, you guys are nuts," I'm buying it. It was $14 a share then.
Yeah.
It's like $300 a share now. Yeah,
right.
but some things you have to build a clientele and put out a service for free for a period of time, and then you know, when it becomes established and appreciated, then you start charging money for it. So right now I'm just in the kind of creative, let's say, client building stage.
Okay, so I have a couple questions. First of all, to get to Art, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that doesn't necessarily know what their passion is, or what type of business they want to start, or where they should sort of be? I just think of you here because of somebody that didn't even really participate in art before and then found out they had a talent for it. What sort of advice would you give to somebody trying to find their way in the work world and they have sort of no idea what they want to do?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, and it's kind of underlines the point that you don't start a business because you just want to start a business, right?
Yeah.
You have to have a reason or a desire or a passion or whatever it may be that you want to turn into something. So it's almost like my life pre-injury and my life after. Before, I wouldn't say I had a passion for anything, though I had many interests. but there's a difference. A passion is something you just have to do it, and you doesn't matter what anybody says or what the economics are or whatever. You just have to do it. It's like painters have to paint. Poets must write poetry.
Yeah.
Authors must write. Okay, and if you're lucky enough to have that something that you just have to do, then you're kind of there. But if you're not, then, and that's where I was pre-injury. It wasn't like I was a person without interest. I just didn't have that driving one thing that just meant everything to me. So, and after my injury, I discovered many things that meant a lot to me. That was a big surprise. But if you don't have that one thing that means everything to you, that means you just have to travel, you have to get out there, you have to try jobs that you don't like and read and just find, discover, because the best thing to do is work at something because you love it and then make money as a number two. And the worst thing is to make money doing something you hate.
Yeah.
But just making money because, you got to pay the bills. People that live that life are not usually very happy. So, and the people that are happy but don't make any money still, but just enjoy life somehow because they're doing what they love. I mean, that's the next best thing, So,
yeah.
Uh,
Absolutely.
Yeah, you just have to get out there and be patient and just try things, because sooner or later, somehow you'll find that thing you love, and then that'll be great. But hey, let's face it. There was a question that got asked earlier about barriers and failures and things. And one of the failures that I will not forget is I had a product that I was marketing back in my college days, or can't remember, it was kind of pre or post. I went in and out and switched faculties and took breaks and came back and restarted and started and restarted and started a number of times. And I picked up this product from a company that I contacted. I got an agreement to promote it and sell it. And I was kind of going by this formula that I'd read in a book, and I got free publicity by calling the local newspaper up and got my name. They wrote an article on me and put my picture in the paper, right?
Yeah.
And that's like, okay, great. You're in business. You're getting this wonderful marketing opportunity and whatever. But the truth is, I didn't have any business education at that point. I was just kind of going with this basic business idea and kind of a bunch of assumptions that I could make money. So out of this newspaper article, this guy calls me up and said, "Hey, I'd like to meet up with you and talk about your business and see, I might invest, and I might want to work with you." And I said, "Great." So I met with him, and he started asking me these questions that every business person should know, like, what's your gross margin? What are your operating costs? What are your, these basic business name terminology and things that you should know. And at that point, I didn't know these things, right? So I said to myself, okay, listen, maybe you're jumping ahead a couple of steps here. It might be good to get some basic business background. And yeah, I went back to school, took some business courses, and
awesome.
and those things are very important. And I would say if you think you like the idea of being in business, but you don't know what you do, you don't have that driving passion or whatever, take a business course. Get some basic business behind you, because business courses aren't just helpful for running businesses. They're important for life. Business is life, dollars and cents. Everybody has to pay the bills. Everybody has to make some money. Knowing the numbers, basic business management is managing your own finances. That's like square one.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's really good advice, sort of not putting the cart in front of the horse, so to speak. There's that, quote, luck is preparation and something else meeting one another. I can't remember it, but basically, you know, a lot of people that are really successful are given some sort of break, or as Ian was saying earlier, some sort of right place, right time. But you have to be ready for the opportunity to come along, right?
Luck is important, but the more skills and experience you have, the more luck comes your way, because you recognize what's actually an opportunity and you can actually act. So
absolutely. And as you were saying, you know, for somebody that doesn't really know what their passion is or sort of what line of work they want to be in, and you were saying go and collect experiences, go and travel. Ian, I want to talk about your passion for travel and how that has sort of influenced sort of the way that you run business and run your life, and if the two coincide.
Steve?
They do. They have crossed over quite recently, and I think, well, I love traveling because it pushes the limits. It's definitely challenging on the ventilator. There's no question about it. But it shows me perspective on other cultures and other businesses. I know I've been sitting in a cafe in Amsterdam, thinking this is great. Why don't we have this in Canada? Now, I didn't start up a cafe, but I did work with a cannabis production facility. So I think it's somewhat in alignment. And then after a while, I realized that I ran across a lot of people that also wanted to travel, but were intimidated and thought, well, it's going to be too much work. It won't be enjoyable. And so after going to Southeast Asia last year, I really focused attention on turning that into another part of my company, trying to share that knowledge, share my stories, and help bring excitement to other people and help them understand that, yeah, it can be a real pain in the butt spending 6 months trying to plan a 1 month trip, but I would do it again in a heartbeat. And I am. Right now, I'm starting to plan a trip to South Africa and Madagascar. And I know it's going to take a long time, but hey, it's worth it. And to have those stories and that footage to share, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's incredibly inspiring. I remember you and I talking almost a year ago, like regarding NetClay, and you were talking about starting, like, I didn't know if it was an app or a website. You wanted to start something in tourism. Yes, am I right?
Yeah. You are absolutely. So since then I started out I Can Travel, and it's another division, and it's public speaking, consultation, and through that I've done a lot of networking globally, figuring out who the key players are in the accessible travel industry, and find my role, find my niche, and that's been very, very exciting. The last year, I spoke at a global accessibility traveler conference about ventilators. I realized that not a lot of people on vents are traveling overseas to these rural areas like Cambodia, and so I think that's my plan moving forward, is to try to focus attention on that, and have the attitude of, well, if a guy on a ventilator can do it, then somebody who's an amputee, for example, has a lot. I think it would be a lot easier. But I also really enjoy hearing stories from others about what their challenges are and how I can help them have an easier process, an easier guide, whether that's networking with the appropriate channels in the country that they're hoping to visit, or giving them a to-do list of how I plan a trip from beginning to end. I think all of these things are quite valuable.
That's amazing. And that's such an example of you turning in something you're passionate about into a business venture as well, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
why not? What's another business?
Yeah. Well, I mean, let alone travel. I can see that being really intimidating to somebody with a physical disability or on a ventilator. Absolutely. I think that there is probably some intimidation around starting a venture like a business, thinking this is going to be too hard. And so I know you said perseverance is sort of your advice there. Art, do you have sort of any advice to somebody that's maybe thinking, how could I do this?
Well, the word perseverance, it just reminds me of the movie called The Founder. I don't know if you ever saw it, but for anybody kind of thinking about this business thing, it's a must watch. It's about Ray Kroc, the founder of the McDonald's franchise, that everybody knows. But he wasn't the creator of the actual restaurants. He was the creator of the corporate success. Before he met the guys, the two brothers that started the McDonald's restaurant, he was a salesman of milkshake machines. And the movie is absolutely hilarious in a way, because he just hates, well, I wouldn't say hates it. He suffers brutally as a kind of failed salesman. But every day after he's done his job, he comes to this hotel room or whatever, and he listens to this record that's about how to succeed in business. And it says, it doesn't matter how educated you are, how wealthy you are, how good a family or whatever you came back from. The one thing in business that you need to succeed is perseverance. and that's the word. Yeah. You gotta take it and take it and take it and take it and take it. And, and just keep living with failure or whatever until that point where everything comes into place and you win,
Yeah.
But it's not an easy road.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So if you were going to give somebody a step to start, would it be something like get really clear on your vision, or reach out to somebody that's already doing it, or?
Well, read and try to get the experience without having to actually suffer all these lessons yourself, because there's lots of good business reads, and I used to subscribe to the Globe and Mail and learn all kinds of background stories and things, and even just in investing in a stock, right, and following the progress that the company makes. Maybe not like a stock like Microsoft or Apple or Google or Amazon or something that's already big and famous, but buy a stock in a company that's got its shares that are 10 cents, and read the reports and understand what their finances look like, and what it looks like for a company that is listed on a stock exchange but has no sales for years in a row, and how they struggle to get money, and how their executives come and go, and how they sound on the phone when they do the conference calls. Some will be cheerful, some will be upbeat, some will be, the CEOs are, the captain of the ship, and they have to be positive, but they have their difficult times too, and they get fired. So it's an eye opener. The more experience you can get without actually learning the hard lessons from suffering yourself, mentor if or if you go to your local businesses in their community or whatever, the owner of the local coffee shop or whatever, chat them up and say, hey, do you own this business? What's it like to be the owner of a coffee shop or whatever it is, and pick a business that you're interested in. And I did get those little mentorship opportunities when I was in college. I did business projects, and and met with local business people. And yeah, you know, business is fun if you're making money, but if you're losing money and your products aren't selling or you know, the competition just basically made your product look like garbage. You know, there's major businesses that have pretty much been out of business in a day when something better comes out, right?
Right.
Like think of BlackBerry. The company was called Research in Motion. They were worth, I don't know what it was, like $150 a share or something. And then Apple came out with the iPhone.
Bam.
And then with a matter of, let's say, 2 years or something, they went from having 95% of the market, having a stock price of, you know, whatever it is, 100, 200 a share, and to a company whose product was irrelevant.
Right.
And had not even 1% of the market. Their shares went down to $1 each or something. And nobody expected the companies to survive. And this is 20 years later, 20 plus, and they're still trying to make a go of their business. So,
Wow.
you know, business can be tough.
Yeah.
And in the words of Ray Kroc from McDonald's, business is war, you know.
Right.
There's a nice part where you're making money and your clients love your products and things like that, but those are the good times.
Yeah. Oh, there's
You
two
know,
sides. I'm sure there's two sides.
So yeah, I used to go to trade shows,
Okay.
and we spend $10,000 or $15,000 to prepare, including the booth rental and all that stuff. And we'd pack our stuff up and go to Las Vegas and set up and you know, spend money on planes and hotel rooms and a couple of support staff or whatever it would be. And $20,000 later, you see if the show worked out and if you got orders from it, and if it was profitable or whether it was a big lump. So, and you never know whether, you know, your stuff is going to be appreciated at the show, or whether the competition is going to have something that's a little bit better, and everybody's going to be walking by your booth and not even paying attention to what's there. So,
I like this advice of reading and researching and listening to other people who have done it, so maybe you can mitigate your own failures, quote unquote, a little bit.
And go to a trade show. I mean, if you're interested in whatever it is, look it up on the internet and see. The shows are not what they were prior to COVID, but they'll be back. And in the COVID era, they're just online anyway, so you can see them virtually. But if you're interested in electronics, for example, the computer, there's a giant computer show in November or something in Las Vegas. There's the Consumer Electronics Show in January in Las Vegas, which the biggest companies will have booths in there, and the small companies there'll be like 1,000 little companies, you know, with a one-man booth or whatever. You can talk to them and you can see their product, and you can even see if you can have the rights to sell their product wherever you are in a market. And you know, there's your business, there's your passion. You can find something that's interesting at a show.
With the internet and the accessibility, there's no shortage on opportunities for you to learn and research and explore. So if you're interested in something, I think that's some great advice. Ian, do you have any parting words for us?
Well, I think you're right. It's exciting to talk about this. It brings out the young entrepreneur in me. I know that in the beginning I had butterflies. I was terrified because I had no business experience, but I knew it was something I wanted to do. And so I encourage everybody to do the research, and then and make sure that you're not going to put yourself out, but then just do it. Start small, see how it works, and if you're receiving positive feedback, then expand on it. If you're not, then pivot a little and see how that works. Because you'll know right away if the business that you envisioned will work or not. And just don't give up. Just keep pivoting until you find that perfect job that you're happy with and that you're making the profit that you were hoping for.
Persevere.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much to Ian and Art for being here, and for Yoshi for taking notes. And thank you for everyone for attending. And you can watch this on our Facebook page and YouTube pages. It will remain living there. And yeah, good luck on everybody's business ventures.
All right. Thank
All right.
you.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.